Hello, beautiful soul. I'm Aurora, and welcome to Twin Flame Journey, a space where we explore the deeper meaning behind soul connections, divine timing, and the path that leads two hearts back to union. If you've been feeling the signs, you're in the right place.
What if everything you've been told about twin flame union is incomplete? What if union does not begin the moment you finally reunite with that person, but begins much earlier, long before they return, long before you stand face to face again? What if twin flame union actually begins inside you? This idea can feel almost paradoxical at first. Most people on the twin flame journey believe that union is an external event. They imagine a moment where separation ends, misunderstandings dissolve, and two souls finally come back together. They imagine the phone call, the message, the unexpected meeting, the confession of love that changes everything. And because of this belief, many people spend years focusing on one question: when will they come back? But the deeper you go into the twin flame journey, the more you begin to realize something surprising. The real shift does not begin when they return. The real shift begins when something inside you changes. In fact, many people who eventually experience union notice something very strange about the timing. It happens when they stop chasing. It happens when they stop trying to control the outcome. It happens when they finally reach a place of deep inner balance. At that point, something profound has already happened within them. They have entered what many spiritual teachings call inner union. And without understanding this inner process, the entire twin flame journey can feel confusing, frustrating, and even painful. Because from the outside, the journey can look like a love story. But from the inside, it is actually a journey of energetic integration. A journey of becoming whole. The question most people never ask. Let's pause for a moment and ask a question that rarely gets discussed. If twin flames are two halves of the same soul, why would the journey require so much separation? Why would there be distance, silence, triggers, and intense emotional upheaval? Why wouldn't two people who are meant for each other simply come together and stay together? At first glance, this seems contradictory. But the answer becomes clearer when you understand the deeper purpose of the twin flame path. The journey is not just about meeting another person. It is about meeting parts of yourself. Parts that have been ignored. Parts that have been suppressed. Parts that have been waiting to be integrated. And this is where the concept of inner union begins to reveal itself. Because long before two twin flames can sustain union externally, something must align internally. Without that alignment, the connection becomes unstable. It becomes a cycle of attraction and separation, love and fear, closeness and distance. Many people recognize this pattern. They meet their twin flame and experience an almost supernatural connection. The recognition is immediate. The emotions are overwhelming. The bond feels deeper than anything they have ever experienced before. But soon after that initial intensity, something else appears. Triggers, old wounds, fears of abandonment, fears of losing control, fears of not being enough. Suddenly, the connection that once felt magical begins to feel chaotic. And many people start wondering, why is something so beautiful also so painful? The answer lies in what the connection is revealing. It is not simply showing you another person. It is showing you yourself, the mirror that changes everything. One of the most well-known aspects of the twin flame connection is the concept of mirroring. Your twin flame reflects parts of your inner world back to you. Not just the beautiful parts, but the unresolved ones too. Your insecurities, your emotional wounds, your patterns of attachment, your fears around love. And this mirroring can feel incredibly intense, sometimes overwhelming, because suddenly you are no longer able to ignore what has been hidden beneath the surface. The connection brings it all into the light. And when this happens, two reactions are very common. One person may begin chasing, trying to hold onto the connection at all costs, trying to fix things, trying to restore the initial closeness. The other person may begin running, feeling overwhelmed by the intensity, feeling pressure they cannot explain, feeling emotions they are not ready to face. This dynamic is often called the runner and chaser phase. But beneath this dynamic lies something much deeper. Both individuals are being pushed toward inner transformation. Both are being asked to confront the imbalance within themselves. And this is where the idea of inner union becomes essential. Because the twin flame journey is not asking you to complete yourself through another person. It is asking you to discover the completeness that already exists within you, the forgotten balance within. Inside every human being exist two fundamental energetic forces, often referred to as divine masculine and divine feminine. These energies are not about gender. They exist within everyone. The divine masculine represents qualities such as direction, action, structure, protection, and clarity. It is the energy that moves forward, the energy that builds, decides, and leads. The divine feminine represents intuition, emotion, creativity, receptivity, and compassion. It is the energy that feels, the energy that nurtures, flows, and connects. When these two energies are balanced within a person, something remarkable happens. Life begins to feel more harmonious. Decisions feel clearer. Emotions feel stable. There is both strength and softness, both action and presence. But many people grow up with these energies out of balance. Some suppress their emotional side in order to appear strong. Others lose their sense of direction because they become overwhelmed by feelings. Some people overdevelop control and logic. Others live entirely through emotion and intuition. When this imbalance exists internally, relationships often reflect it. You might attract partners who mirror the missing energy, or partners who trigger the imbalance even more. And when twin flames meet, this imbalance becomes impossible to ignore. Because the twin flame connection amplifies everything. The love feels deeper, but the imbalance feels stronger too, which is why the early stages of the journey can feel so turbulent. Not because the connection is wrong, but because it is revealing something that needs to be healed. The turning point. At some point during the twin flame journey, something begins to shift. Often after periods of separation, emotional exhaustion, or deep reflection. The chasing slows down. The need for external validation begins to fade. And a new question emerges. Instead of asking, "How can I bring them back?" you begin asking something very different. What is this journey trying to teach me? This moment is incredibly important because it marks the beginning of true transformation. You start focusing on healing your own wounds, understanding your patterns, developing emotional stability, reconnecting with your own purpose and identity. And as you do this, something unexpected happens. The energy within you begins to rebalance. The masculine part of you becomes calmer, clearer, more grounded. The feminine part of you becomes softer, more intuitive, more trusting. Instead of fighting each other, these energies begin working together. This is the early stage of inner union. And when this internal harmony begins forming, the entire dynamic of the twin flame journey starts to change. You no longer feel desperate for the connection. You no longer feel incomplete without them. You begin experiencing something that once seemed impossible. Peace. Not because the story is finished, but because you have started to align with yourself. And this is the moment many people overlook, because they're still watching the outside world, still wondering if the other person will return. But the truth is, something far more important has already begun. The real union has started within you. And in the next part of this journey, we will explore exactly how this inner balance between divine masculine and divine feminine begins to form, and why it is the true foundation for twin flame union in the external world. If twin flame union begins inside you, then the next question naturally arises. What exactly is happening within you that prepares the path for this union? Many people imagine the twin flame journey as a story about two individuals learning how to love each other. But in truth, the deeper work of this journey has very little to do with the other person at first. It is about something much more profound. It is about the reunion of two sacred energies that already exist within you. These energies are often called the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Understanding these two forces is essential if you want to understand why the twin flame journey unfolds the way it does. Because before two souls can sustain harmony together, These energies must first find harmony within each individual, the two forces that shape human experience. Throughout ancient spiritual traditions, from Eastern philosophies to mystical Western teachings, humanity has long recognized that life is built upon complementary forces: light and darkness, stillness and movement, expansion and contraction. Similarly, within every human being there exists a balance between two energetic principles: the divine masculine and the divine feminine. These energies are not about biological gender. A woman can embody strong masculine energy. A man can embody deep feminine energy. In fact, every person carries both. The divine masculine represents the energy of structure, direction, and action. It is the force that creates movement. It sets goals, makes decisions, and builds the path forward. When this energy is healthy and balanced, it expresses itself through clarity, responsibility, protection, discipline, and courage. It is the energy that says, "I will stand firm." The divine feminine, on the other hand, represents the energy of intuition, emotion, creativity, and connection. It is the force that allows life to flow. It feels deeply, nurtures relationships, and remains open to inspiration and possibility. When balanced, it expresses itself through compassion, receptivity, empathy, creativity, and emotional intelligence. It is the energy that says, "I will feel and trust." Both energies are essential. One moves forward. The other receives and senses the right direction. One builds structure. The other fills that structure with meaning. One acts. The other understands. When these energies cooperate within a person, life begins to feel aligned. But when they fall out of balance, inner conflict begins. Why so many people feel internally divided? In modern life, many people grow up learning to suppress one of these energies. Society often rewards productivity, logic, and constant action. This encourages people to develop their masculine energy strongly. They become excellent at working, planning, achieving, and controlling outcomes. But in the process, they may lose connection with their emotional world. Their intuition becomes quiet. Their inner voice becomes difficult to hear. On the other side, some people grow up deeply connected to their emotions and intuition but struggle with direction and boundaries. They may feel everything intensely, but find it difficult to take decisive action. They may wait for life to happen instead of actively shaping it. Neither situation is wrong, but both represent imbalance. When the masculine and feminine energies within us do not cooperate, our inner world begins to feel fragmented. One part of us wants certainty. Another part wants freedom. One part wants control. Another part wants surrender. This inner tension can show up in relationships as confusion, emotional turbulence, or repeating patterns that never seem to resolve. And when the twin flame connection appears, this imbalance becomes magnified. Why the twin flame connection triggers everything. The twin flame bond is often described as a mirror. But this mirror does more than reflect your personality. It reflects your energetic state. If your inner masculine and feminine energies are not aligned, the connection will reveal it immediately. For example, someone who is overly dependent on emotional validation may feel extreme anxiety when their twin flame pulls away. Their feminine energy may be highly active, longing for connection and closeness. But their inner masculine energy may not be strong enough to provide stability and self-direction. So they chase. They search for reassurance. They look for signs that the connection is still alive. On the other hand, someone who has suppressed their emotional side may feel overwhelmed by the depth of the connection. Their masculine energy may be dominant, focused on independence and control. But their feminine side may feel unfamiliar or even frightening. So they run. They create distance. They retreat from the intensity they cannot yet understand. This is why the runner and chaser dynamic appears so frequently in twin flame stories. It is not simply a relationship pattern. It is an energetic imbalance being revealed. One person leans too far into emotional attachment. The other leans too far into emotional avoidance. Both are reflections of the same internal misalignment, and the journey begins pushing both individuals toward balance. The real purpose of the separation phase. Many people see separation as a punishment or a sign that something has gone wrong. But from a spiritual perspective, separation often serves a very specific purpose. It creates space for inner integration. When two twin flames remain together before they are energetically ready, the imbalance between their inner masculine and feminine energies can create constant turbulence. Arguments, miscommunication, emotional overwhelm, periods of closeness followed by sudden distance. Separation interrupts this cycle. It forces both individuals to turn inward. Without the constant presence of the other person, something unexpected begins to happen. You start meeting parts of yourself that you previously projected onto them. You begin learning how to create stability within your own life. You begin strengthening your inner masculine energy, your sense of direction, purpose, and independence. At the same time, you begin healing your emotional world. You learn how to hold space for your feelings without being consumed by them. You reconnect with intuition, creativity, and self-compassion. This process is not always easy. Sometimes it involves confronting deep fears, abandonment, rejection, unworthiness. But through this process, something remarkable begins to form. Your inner masculine and feminine energies start communicating with each other. Instead of fighting for control, they begin cooperating. What inner balance actually feels like. When the divine masculine and divine feminine within you start aligning, your entire experience of life begins to shift. You become capable of both strength and vulnerability. You can take action without forcing outcomes. You can feel emotions without losing yourself in them. You trust your intuition but also know how to bring those insights into practical reality. Instead of constantly seeking answers from the outside world, you begin finding them within. And perhaps most importantly, your sense of identity becomes more stable. You are no longer defined by whether someone stays or leaves. Your worth is no longer tied to someone else's choices. You begin feeling whole in a way that does not depend on external validation. This is the foundation of inner union, not perfection, not emotional numbness, but a deep cooperation between the forces within you. And when this inner harmony begins forming, the twin flame connection starts changing in subtle but powerful ways. Because the energy you radiate into the world is no longer one of lack. It is no longer seeking completion. Instead, it becomes the energy of someone who is already whole. The energy that precedes union. One of the most fascinating aspects of the twin flame journey is that many people report the same experience right before union begins approaching. They stop obsessing over it. Not because they have given up, but because something inside them has settled. They feel calm, centered, grounded in their own life. They begin pursuing their purpose, building meaningful experiences, and nurturing relationships that support their growth. And without trying to force anything, their energy begins sending a very clear signal into the universe. A signal that says, I am complete. And this is the moment when the external world can finally begin reflecting the internal transformation that has taken place. Because once the divine masculine and divine feminine within you have started aligning, the energetic foundation for union has already been laid. What appears in the external world is simply the reflection of that sacred balance. But how exactly does the universe mirror this inner harmony back into your reality? And why do so many people notice synchronicities, unexpected reconnections, and sudden shifts once inner union begins forming? That is the mystery we will explore in the next chapter. Once you begin to understand the balance between the divine masculine and the divine feminine within yourself, another profound realization begins to emerge. The twin flame journey is not only about inner transformation, it is also about reflection. Because the universe has a mysterious way of mirroring the energy that exists within us. What you carry internally often becomes visible in the reality you experience externally. This idea can sound abstract at first. Many people hear phrases like, the universe reflects your energy, and wonder what that actually means in practical terms. Is it simply a poetic metaphor? Or is there something deeper happening beneath the surface of our experiences? For those on the twin flame path, the answer becomes surprisingly clear over time, because the connection itself behaves like a living mirror. The emotions you suppress often appear through the other person. The wounds you carry often become activated through the dynamic of the relationship. The fears you try to hide often rise to the surface when the connection becomes intense. But the mirror does not only reflect wounds. It also reflects growth. It reflects healing. And most importantly, it reflects inner harmony. The law of energetic reflection. One of the fundamental spiritual principles behind the twin flame journey is the idea that reality responds to internal states. In other words, the outer world tends to organize itself around the energy you consistently hold inside. This does not mean that every event in life is consciously controlled by your thoughts. Life is far more complex than that. However, your emotional and energetic patterns influence the types of experiences you attract and sustain. Think about moments in your life when you felt deeply confident and grounded. During those times, people often responded to you differently. Opportunities seemed to appear more naturally. Conversations flowed more easily. You carried a presence that others could feel. Now think about moments when you felt insecure, anxious, or emotionally unstable. During those periods, relationships may have felt more difficult. Misunderstandings occurred more often. You may have felt like you were constantly trying to prove your worth or hold things together. In both cases, your internal state influenced the external dynamic. The twin flame connection magnifies this principle dramatically. Because when two people share such an intense energetic bond, even subtle internal shifts can create noticeable changes in the connection. Why chasing pushes union away? One of the most common patterns people experience on the twin flame journey is the urge to chase. The connection feels so powerful that losing it feels unbearable. So naturally, the mind tries to regain control. You might analyze every conversation, search for signs everywhere, revisit memories repeatedly, wondering what went wrong. You might even attempt to repair the connection by reaching out more often, expressing feelings more intensely, or trying to prove your love. But strangely, these efforts often produce the opposite result. The more you chase, the more distant the other person seems to become. This pattern can feel incredibly frustrating, because your intentions may come from a place of love, yet the outcome feels like rejection. But if we examine this through the lens of energetic reflection, something interesting becomes clear. Chasing is not only an action, it is an energetic signal. It communicates a subtle message to the universe and to the other person. That message often sounds like this: I need you in order to feel complete. This energy creates pressure within the connection. Even if the words you speak are loving, the underlying energy carries urgency, fear, and attachment. And when someone senses that pressure, consciously or unconsciously, their natural response is often to create space. Not because they do not care, but because the energy feels overwhelming. In this way, chasing unintentionally pushes union further away. The moment the energy changes. At some point in the journey, many people reach a turning point. It does not always happen suddenly. Sometimes it develops slowly after months or even years of emotional ups and downs. Eventually, the constant focus on the other person becomes exhausting. The mind becomes tired of analyzing every sign. The heart becomes tired of hoping and fearing at the same time. And gradually, attention begins shifting inward. Instead of asking, why are they not here? You begin asking, what is this experience teaching me about myself? This shift may seem small at first, but energetically, it changes everything. Because your focus is no longer on controlling the connection. Your focus is on understanding and healing yourself. You begin investing energy into your own growth, your passions, your purpose, your emotional well-being. Your life starts expanding beyond the story of the twin flame connection. And this is where something fascinating begins to happen. The energy of lack starts dissolving. The sense of needing the other person in order to feel whole begins fading. You start feeling complete on your own, not because the connection no longer matters, but because your identity is no longer dependent on it. This is the energetic state that many people describe as inner union, when the universe begins responding. Once this internal shift occurs, many people begin noticing unusual changes in their external reality. Sometimes these changes appear as synchronicities. You might suddenly see repeating numbers frequently. Songs that remind you of the connection might appear unexpectedly. You may hear the other person's name in random conversations. Places, memories, or shared symbols may appear again and again. At first, these experiences may seem like coincidence. But for those on the twin flame path, the timing often feels too precise to ignore. Even more surprising is what sometimes happens next. The person who once seemed distant may suddenly reach out. You might encounter them unexpectedly, or communication may reopen after a long period of silence. These moments can feel almost surreal, because they often occur when you are no longer actively trying to make them happen. When your energy is calm, balanced, centered in your own life. This is not magic in the sense of controlling another person's choices. Rather, it is the natural effect of energetic alignment. When the energy within you stabilizes, the dynamic of the connection can stabilize as well. The subtle power of wholeness. There is something deeply attractive about someone who feels whole. Not perfect, but internally balanced. When a person carries both strong masculine direction and open feminine presence, their energy becomes calm and grounded. They are not demanding attention. They are not afraid of losing it either. They simply exist as themselves. This type of energy creates a space where connection can happen naturally, without pressure, without force, without fear. And this is the state that often precedes genuine twin flame union. Not because the universe is rewarding someone for their spiritual work, but because the energetic conditions necessary for harmony have finally been created. The inner masculine provides stability. The inner feminine provides openness. Together, they create a field of balance that allows the connection to exist without collapsing into chaos. The paradox of union. Perhaps the most fascinating truth about the twin flame journey is this. Union often begins when you no longer feel desperate for it. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped believing that your happiness depends on it. Your life becomes meaningful in its own right. You build a relationship with yourself that feels fulfilling. You trust your intuition. You move forward with purpose. And in that moment, something extraordinary has already happened. You have become the energetic embodiment of union within yourself. When that state exists internally, the universe no longer needs to teach the same lessons through separation, because the balance the journey was trying to create has already been achieved. And what appears externally after that point is often simply the reflection of what has already taken place within you. The real union was never waiting somewhere in the future. It was quietly forming inside you all along. If inner union is the true beginning of twin flame union, then an important question naturally arises. Why does it take so long? Why do so many twin flame connections move through cycles of intense closeness and painful distance? Why do two people who clearly share a powerful bond still struggle to remain together? At first, it can feel confusing. After all, if two souls are meant to be connected, shouldn't the relationship feel effortless? Shouldn't everything simply fall into place? But the truth of the twin flame journey is far more complex. Because before harmony can exist between two people, harmony must exist within each of them. And for many individuals, that inner harmony has not yet formed. The imbalance between the divine masculine and divine feminine energies inside them is still unresolved. Until that balance begins to emerge, sustaining union becomes extremely difficult. Not because the love is not real, but because the internal structure needed to hold that love is not stable yet. The hidden conflict inside many people. Many people grow up without ever learning how to balance their inner energies. They may develop strong ambition, discipline, and independence. They may become excellent at solving problems, working hard, and moving forward in life. But they may struggle to access their emotional world. They may find it difficult to express vulnerability or trust their intuition. In energetic terms, this means their masculine energy dominates, while the feminine side remains underdeveloped. Others experience the opposite pattern. They grow up highly sensitive, deeply emotional, and strongly intuitive. They feel everything intensely. They care deeply about connection and relationships. But they may struggle with boundaries, direction, or decisive action. Their feminine energy is strong, while their masculine side lacks stability. Neither of these situations is wrong. They simply represent imbalance. And when imbalance exists within a person, it inevitably appears in their relationships. Because relationships often reflect the parts of ourselves we have not yet integrated. How imbalance shows up in the twin flame dynamic. When two twin flames meet, their energetic connection is so strong that it magnifies whatever imbalance already exists within them. This is why the early stages of the journey can feel almost overwhelming. For example, imagine someone whose feminine energy is dominant. They crave emotional closeness. They want deep connection. They feel the bond intensely and naturally move toward it. When their twin flame appears distant or uncertain, anxiety begins to rise. Questions flood the mind. Did I say something wrong? Do they still feel the same? Why are they pulling away? The desire to restore the connection becomes urgent. So they chase. They reach out. They try to repair the emotional distance. But if the other person carries a dominant masculine energy with suppressed emotional awareness, the reaction may be very different. The intensity of the connection may feel overwhelming. They may sense expectations they are not ready to fulfill. They may feel pressure to respond emotionally in ways they do not yet understand. So they retreat. They create space. They run. And suddenly the dynamic becomes clear. One person moves closer. The other moves further away. The more one pursues, the more the other withdraws. This cycle can repeat many times, leaving both individuals confused and emotionally exhausted. But from an energetic perspective, something deeper is happening. The imbalance within each person is being exposed. The illusion that love alone is enough. One of the most painful realizations on the twin flame path is that love alone is not always enough to sustain a relationship. The connection between twin flames can be incredibly powerful. Sometimes it feels almost supernatural. The recognition is instant. The emotional bond feels undeniable. But even the deepest love cannot overcome energetic imbalance. If one person cannot hold emotional intimacy, the relationship will struggle. If one person cannot maintain personal stability, the connection will feel unstable. If both individuals rely on the other to feel complete, the relationship can become overwhelming. Love may bring two people together, but balance is what allows them to stay together. Without that balance, the connection often enters a cycle of reunion and separation. Each separation creates space for growth. Each reunion tests whether the inner balance has improved. Until eventually, the internal transformation becomes strong enough to support lasting union. The runner and chaser dynamic revisited. The runner and chaser dynamic is often misunderstood. Many people believe one person simply loves more while the other person is afraid of commitment. But the reality is usually much more nuanced. Both individuals are responding to their internal energetic state. The chaser is often operating from wounded feminine energy. They long for connection but struggle to create emotional stability within themselves. So they seek that stability from the other person. The runner is often operating from wounded masculine energy. They may value independence and control but struggle to access vulnerability and emotional openness. So, when the connection becomes intense, their instinct is to retreat. Neither role is inherently better or worse. Both are reflections of imbalance. And interestingly, these roles can sometimes switch. The runner may eventually become the one who seeks connection. The chaser may reach a point where they step back and reclaim their independence. These shifts occur when inner healing begins. Because the true purpose of the dynamic is not punishment or rejection. It is transformation. The moment of awareness. Eventually, many people on the twin flame journey experience a moment of clarity. They begin noticing the patterns repeating again and again. The same emotional triggers. The same cycles of hope and disappointment. the same feeling of instability. And they start asking a different question. Instead of focusing entirely on the other person, they begin asking, what inside me keeps creating this dynamic? This question marks the beginning of deep personal growth, because it shifts attention from external circumstances to internal awareness. You start recognizing your emotional patterns, your fears, your attachment styles, your need for validation. You begin understanding how your inner masculine and feminine energies have been interacting. Perhaps your inner masculine has been weak, leaving you without strong boundaries. Perhaps your inner feminine has been suppressed, making emotional intimacy difficult. As this awareness grows, the focus of the journey begins changing. Instead of trying to force union externally, you start building union internally. Why this phase is necessary? The imbalance phase of the twin flame journey can feel incredibly painful. It can trigger feelings of rejection, confusion, and heartbreak. But it also serves a powerful purpose. Without this phase, many people would never confront the deeper wounds they carry. They might continue repeating the same patterns in relationship after relationship, avoiding vulnerability, avoiding emotional responsibility, avoiding the deeper work of self-integration. The twin flame connection disrupts these patterns. It forces hidden wounds to the surface. It challenges both individuals to evolve. And while this process can feel chaotic at times, it is guiding both souls toward the same destination: inner harmony. Once the masculine and feminine energies within each person begin cooperating instead of competing, something remarkable happens. The chaos begins to calm. The emotional storms begin to settle. The connection no longer feels like a battlefield. It begins feeling like a place of peace. But reaching that stage requires patience, awareness, and a willingness to transform from within. And in the next chapter, we will explore the powerful turning point that occurs when someone stops chasing external union and begins focusing entirely on their own inner balance. Because paradoxically, that is often the moment when the path toward real union finally begins to open. At some point along the twin flame journey, something subtle but profound begins to change. It does not always happen suddenly. There is rarely a dramatic moment where everything becomes clear overnight. Instead, it often unfolds gradually, after months or even years of emotional highs and lows, intense longing, confusion, and deep introspection. Eventually, the constant focus on the other person becomes exhausting. You realize how much energy you have spent trying to understand their actions. You remember the nights spent replaying conversations in your mind, the endless search for signs, meanings, synchronicities, and hidden messages, the emotional waves that rise every time they come close and crash when they pull away again. At first, you believed that if you just understood the connection better, you could fix everything. If you could say the right words, if you could be patient enough, if you could prove your love strongly enough, then the union would happen. But over time, something inside you begins to recognize a deeper truth. The connection cannot be forced. And more importantly, your life cannot revolve around waiting for someone else to arrive. This realization marks one of the most important turning points in the entire twin flame journey. Because this is the moment when you begin shifting your attention away from chasing the connection and start returning to yourself. The exhaustion that leads to awakening. For many people, the chasing phase feels almost addictive. The intensity of the connection creates powerful emotional highs. Moments of communication or closeness can feel euphoric. But when distance appears, the emotional crash can feel devastating. This cycle of hope and disappointment keeps the mind locked in constant anticipation. You check your phone more often than usual. You analyze subtle details that others would ignore. You search for reassurance in signs from the universe. At first, this behavior feels natural. After all, when something matters deeply to you, it makes sense to hold on to it. But eventually, the emotional cost becomes impossible to ignore. The constant anticipation drains your energy. Your focus shifts away from your own life. Your happiness begins depending on someone else's actions. And slowly, you begin realizing something important. You are losing yourself in the process. This realization can be painful. because the connection still matters deeply. But it also brings clarity. You begin asking yourself a new question. What would my life look like if I stopped chasing this connection? For many people, this question feels frightening at first, because chasing has become a way of holding on to hope. But letting go of the chase does not mean letting go of the connection. It means letting go of the idea that your peace depends on controlling its outcome. The moment you choose yourself. When someone reaches this stage of the twin flame journey, they often experience a quiet but powerful shift. Instead of focusing all their attention on the other person, they begin investing that energy into their own growth. They start asking different questions. What do I truly want from my life? What passions have I neglected? What parts of myself have I ignored while focusing on this connection? Slowly, they begin rebuilding their relationship with themselves. They pursue goals that once felt distant. They reconnect with creativity, friendships, and personal purpose. They start developing emotional stability that does not depend on external validation. This is not about pretending the twin flame connection never existed. It is about recognizing that your life is bigger than that single story. And interestingly, as this process unfolds, the emotional intensity surrounding the connection begins to soften. The longing becomes quieter. The obsession fades. The need for constant answers disappears. Instead of feeling incomplete without the other person, you begin feeling grounded within yourself. You rediscover a sense of personal wholeness. And this is where the journey begins transforming in ways that many people never expected. The rebirth of the inner masculine. When someone stops chasing external union and starts focusing on themselves, one of the first energies that begins strengthening is the inner divine masculine. This energy represents direction, structure, and stability. During the chasing phase, this energy is often weakened. Your sense of direction becomes centered around the connection. Your emotional state depends heavily on the other person's actions. Your inner world feels unstable. But when you reclaim your attention and begin focusing on your own life again, the masculine energy inside you starts rebuilding. You begin making decisions based on your own values rather than your fears. You set boundaries where necessary. You stop allowing uncertainty to control your emotional state. Instead of waiting for someone else to give your life meaning, you begin creating meaning yourself. This inner strength becomes deeply grounding. And interestingly, as the masculine energy stabilizes, another transformation begins happening as well. The healing of the inner feminine. While the masculine energy rebuilds structure and direction, the divine feminine energy within you begins healing in a different way. Instead of feeling desperate for emotional reassurance, the feminine side starts learning how to hold space for feelings without being overwhelmed by them. You become more compassionate with yourself. You allow emotions to move through you without letting them define your identity. Your intuition becomes clearer. Your sensitivity transforms from a source of pain into a source of wisdom. Instead of seeking love externally to fill an inner emptiness, you begin cultivating love internally. You learn how to nurture yourself emotionally. This creates a powerful balance. The inner masculine provides stability. The inner feminine provides emotional depth. Together, they begin forming the foundation of inner union, the energy of someone who is whole. As this balance strengthens, something fascinating begins to happen. Your energy changes. People around you may notice it even before you do. You appear calmer, more centered, less reactive to external situations. Your presence becomes steady rather than anxious. Instead of radiating the energy of someone searching for something missing, you begin radiating the energy of someone who is complete. And this energetic shift has a powerful effect on the twin flame dynamic. Because during the chasing phase, the connection was often fueled by imbalance. One person seeking closeness, the other seeking distance. But when you become internally balanced, that dynamic loses its foundation. The pressure disappears. The emotional intensity becomes peaceful rather than chaotic. And sometimes, without any deliberate effort, communication begins changing. Unexpected messages appear. Chance encounters occur. Or the connection begins moving in ways that once seemed impossible. Not because you forced anything, but because the energetic conditions for harmony have finally begun to exist. The paradox of letting go. One of the greatest paradoxes of the twin flame journey is this. Union often begins approaching when you stop needing it, not because the connection is no longer meaningful, but because your identity is no longer dependent on it. You can love someone deeply without losing yourself. You can hold space for the connection without sacrificing your own life.
You are no longer chasing.
You are simply living. And in that moment, something remarkable has already happened. The inner masculine and feminine energies within you have begun working together. You have created harmony inside yourself. This is the true beginning of inner union. And once that inner union forms, the universe often begins reflecting it in ways that feel almost magical. But those reflections, the synchronicities, the shifts, the unexpected reconnections, are not random. They are the natural response to the new energy you carry. When inner union begins forming, it rarely arrives with dramatic announcements. There is no sudden voice from the universe declaring that you have reached the next stage of your twin flame journey. Instead, the transformation often appears quietly. Subtle changes begin taking place within your emotional world, your thoughts, and the way you experience life. At first, you may not even recognize what is happening. You may simply notice that things feel different.
Calmer.
Lighter. Less chaotic than before. The intense emotional turbulence that once defined your connection begins to soften. And gradually, you start realizing that the relationship you have with yourself is changing. These quiet shifts are often the earliest signs that inner union is beginning to form. And for many people, this stage can feel both peaceful and mysterious at the same time, because something inside you has clearly evolved. Yet the external world may not have fully caught up with that transformation yet. Understanding these signs is important because they reveal that the journey is progressing, even when the external situation appears unchanged. The first sign, a deep and unexpected calm. One of the most noticeable changes people experience during inner union is a sense of calm that once seemed impossible. Earlier in the journey, the connection may have triggered constant emotional movement. One day you felt hopeful. The next day you felt uncertain. Moments of communication brought excitement. Periods of silence brought anxiety. Your emotional state often felt tied to what the other person was doing. But as inner union begins forming, this pattern gradually dissolves. You may still think about the connection. You may still care deeply. But the emotional urgency fades. The need for immediate answers disappears. Instead, you begin experiencing a quiet trust. A sense that everything is unfolding in its own time. This calm does not come from ignoring your feelings. It comes from understanding them. Your inner feminine energy has learned how to hold emotion without becoming overwhelmed. Your inner masculine energy provides stability and perspective. Together, they create an emotional environment that feels safe and balanced. The second sign, you stop searching for validation. Another powerful shift appears in the way you relate to the connection itself. Earlier in the journey, you may have constantly searched for signs that the connection was real. You looked for synchronicities, repeated numbers, songs that reminded you of them, messages hidden in random conversations. You needed reassurance that the bond was still alive. But as inner union forms, that need begins fading. Not because the signs disappear, but because you no longer depend on them. Your confidence in the connection becomes internal rather than external. You trust what you felt. You trust what the journey has shown you. You no longer need constant confirmation from the outside world. This shift may seem small, but energetically it is very significant. Because the energy of doubt and seeking has been replaced by the energy of quiet certainty. The third sign, your life expands beyond the connection. During the earlier stages of the twin flame journey, it is common for the connection to dominate your thoughts. You might think about it throughout the day, wonder what the other person is doing, replay memories, or imagine possible futures. The connection feels like the center of your emotional universe. But when inner union begins forming, something interesting happens. Your life starts expanding again. You rediscover interests and passions that once brought you joy. You become more present with friends, family, and personal goals. Your attention naturally moves toward building a meaningful life for yourself. And surprisingly, this shift does not feel like abandoning the connection. It feels like reclaiming your identity. You realize that the twin flame journey was never meant to consume your entire life. It was meant to awaken you to a deeper version of yourself. As your life grows richer and more balanced, your energy becomes more grounded. And this grounded energy plays an important role in stabilizing the connection itself. The fourth sign, emotional triggers begin losing their power. Earlier in the journey, small events may have triggered intense emotional reactions. A delayed message, a social media post, a misunderstanding during conversation. These moments could create waves of anxiety, sadness, or frustration. Because the connection felt fragile. You worried that every interaction could change everything. But as inner union develops, these triggers begin losing their power. You respond more calmly. You observe your emotions instead of being controlled by them. You no longer assume the worst when uncertainty appears. This change happens because your inner masculine energy has strengthened. It provides a stable foundation that supports your emotional world. At the same time, your inner feminine energy has healed. Instead of reacting immediately, it allows emotions to flow and settle naturally. Together, these energies create emotional resilience. You still feel deeply, but you no longer feel destabilized by every fluctuation in the connection. The fifth sign, intuition becomes clearer. As inner harmony forms, many people notice their intuition becoming stronger. Decisions that once felt confusing begin feeling clearer. You sense when to move forward and when to step back. You recognize patterns in your life with greater awareness. This clarity often extends to the twin flame connection as well. Instead of constantly questioning what the other person feels or intends, you begin sensing the dynamic more naturally. You trust your inner guidance, not through obsessive analysis, but through quiet understanding. This intuitive clarity emerges because the inner feminine energy, the part of you connected to intuition and emotional wisdom, is no longer overwhelmed by fear. At the same time, the inner masculine energy provides grounding so that intuition can be expressed in practical ways. Together, they create a balanced inner compass. The sixth sign, you feel whole even in uncertainty. Perhaps the most profound sign of inner union is the ability to feel whole even when the external situation remains unresolved. Earlier in the journey, uncertainty may have felt unbearable. You wanted answers. You wanted clarity about the future. You wanted reassurance that union would happen. But as inner union forms, uncertainty begins feeling less threatening. You understand that not everything needs to be controlled. Life becomes a process of unfolding rather than something that must be forced. You begin trusting the timing of your own journey. This trust does not eliminate the desire for union, but it transforms the way you hold that desire. Instead of longing from a place of emptiness, you hold it from a place of completeness. You can imagine a future with your twin flame, but you also know that your life remains meaningful and fulfilling regardless of how that story unfolds. This is the true essence of inner union, the transformation before the reunion. One of the most fascinating aspects of the twin flame journey is that many people report experiencing these signs long before any external reunion takes place. From the outside, it may appear that nothing has changed. The other person may still be distant. Communication may still be limited. But internally, everything feels different. The chaos has settled. The emotional storms have calmed. You are no longer searching for yourself through another person. You have found yourself within. And this inner transformation creates a powerful energetic shift. Because the energy you now radiate is one of balance rather than longing. Wholeness rather than lack. Peace rather than urgency. And when this energy becomes stable, the universe often begins reflecting it in ways that once seemed impossible. Connections shift. Paths cross again. Or circumstances begin aligning in unexpected ways. But these external changes are not the beginning of union. They are the reflection of something that has already happened. The real union began quietly within you. One of the most surprising truths about the twin flame journey is something that many people only realize after a long period of inner growth. Union often begins approaching when you stop needing it. At first, this idea can feel almost contradictory. After all, the twin flame connection is known for its intensity. The bond feels powerful, magnetic, and deeply meaningful. It is natural to want that connection to become permanent. It is natural to hope for reunion, harmony, and a shared future. So, how could union possibly happen when you no longer need it? Wouldn't letting go of the need for union mean giving up on the connection? This is where one of the deepest paradoxes of the twin flame journey appears. Because letting go of the need for union does not mean letting go of love. It means releasing the belief that your happiness depends on it. And that subtle difference changes everything. The difference between desire and dependence. In the earlier stages of the twin flame journey, many people experience a powerful sense of emotional dependence on the connection. The bond feels so unique that it seems irreplaceable. You may feel that no one else could ever understand you the same way. You may feel that your life would only feel complete if the two of you were together. This belief often creates a deep attachment to the outcome of the journey. Union becomes the goal, the moment where everything finally makes sense. But attachment to a specific outcome can create pressure, both internally and within the connection itself. Every delay feels like failure. Every silence feels like rejection. Every obstacle feels like something that must be fixed immediately. When the mind is operating from this state of attachment, peace becomes difficult to maintain. Because your emotional balance depends on something you cannot fully control. But as inner union begins forming, your perspective slowly shifts. You begin recognizing that love does not need to be controlled in order to be real. You begin separating your desire for union from your sense of self-worth. You can still desire the connection. You can still appreciate the bond you share. But your happiness no longer depends on whether it manifests in a specific way. This is the moment when dependence transforms into freedom, the freedom that changes your energy. When you release the need for union, something subtle but powerful begins to happen inside you. Your energy relaxes. The pressure surrounding the connection disappears. You stop trying to force timing, circumstances, or emotional responses. Instead of waiting for life to begin when union happens, you begin living fully now. You invest your energy into your passions, your personal growth, your relationships with friends and family, your sense of purpose. You begin building a life that feels meaningful on its own. And as this happens, the twin flame connection shifts from being the center of your existence to becoming one part of a much larger journey. This shift creates a profound change in your energetic presence. Earlier in the journey, your energy may have carried urgency, a subtle feeling of needing something to happen. But now, your energy carries calm, confidence, self-trust. You are no longer seeking completion through another person. You are already standing in your own completeness. And this is the energy that often precedes real union. Why pressure pushes union away? It is important to understand that energetic pressure can make the twin flame connection unstable. When one person feels responsible for fulfilling the emotional needs of the other, the relationship can become overwhelming. Even if both individuals care deeply for each other, the weight of expectation can create resistance. This is why chasing often pushes the connection further away. Not because love is absent, but because the energetic environment becomes too intense to sustain. When the need for union dissolves, that pressure disappears. The connection is no longer tied to emotional survival. It becomes something lighter, more natural, more balanced. And this shift allows the relationship to breathe. The other person no longer feels like they must fulfill a role in order for you to feel whole. Instead, they encounter someone who is already grounded and complete. Someone who is capable of sharing love rather than seeking it as a necessity. This difference is subtle, but its impact on the connection can be profound. The moment you become the union. Perhaps the deepest realization on the twin flame journey is this. Union is not something you wait for. It is something you become. When the divine masculine and divine feminine energies within you are balanced, your internal world begins functioning as a unified system. Your masculine energy provides direction and strength. Your feminine energy provides intuition and emotional depth. Instead of competing with each other, these energies cooperate. You can take action while remaining emotionally aware. You can feel deeply without losing stability. You can love someone without losing your sense of self. This internal harmony is what true union looks like. And once it exists within you, the external relationship no longer carries the responsibility of completing you. It becomes a reflection of the wholeness you already embody. This is why many people describe reaching a stage where they feel peaceful even if reunion has not yet happened. They know that the journey has already given them something priceless. A deeper understanding of themselves. A stronger connection to their inner truth. A sense of identity that is no longer dependent on external circumstances. In many ways, they have already arrived. The paradox of attraction. Ironically, the moment you stop needing union is often the moment when the energetic conditions for union finally appear. Not because the universe rewards detachment, but because the imbalance that once prevented harmony has been resolved. Earlier in the journey, the connection may have been driven by longing and emotional turbulence. Now it is supported by stability and self-awareness. Earlier, one person may have been chasing while the other was running. Now both individuals have space to approach the connection from a place of balance. This does not guarantee that reunion will happen immediately. Every twin flame journey unfolds according to its own timing. But the internal foundation required for union has finally been created. The energy of lack has been replaced by the energy of wholeness. And this transformation often sends a powerful signal into the universe. A signal that says, I am ready. Not because you are waiting, but because you are no longer waiting. Living without waiting. Perhaps the most beautiful stage of the twin flame journey is the one where you begin living your life without constantly waiting for the next chapter to begin. You move forward with confidence. You follow your passions. You allow life to surprise you. The twin flame connection remains meaningful, but it no longer defines your sense of identity. You can imagine a future where union happens, but you also recognize that your life is already full of possibility. And in this state of openness, something remarkable becomes possible. Love can enter your life in its most authentic form, not as something you cling to, but as something you share, not as something you need in order to survive, but as something that enhances an already meaningful existence. This is the paradox that many people discover at the end of their twin flame journey. The moment you stop searching for union outside of yourself is the moment you realize it has already begun within. By the time someone reaches the stage where inner union has formed, something remarkable has already happened within them. They have stopped chasing. They have stopped searching for validation. They have rebuilt their sense of identity and purpose. They have learned to balance the divine masculine and divine feminine energies inside themselves. From the outside, their life may appear calm, grounded, and stable. But internally, a profound transformation has taken place. And once this transformation becomes stable, the outer world often begins responding in ways that feel almost mysterious. For many people on the twin flame journey, this is the stage where the mirror of reality begins reflecting the inner union that has already occurred. But these reflections rarely appear in dramatic or predictable ways. Instead, they tend to unfold gradually through subtle changes in energy, timing, and circumstance. The shift in energetic presence. One of the first external effects of inner union is a shift in the way others perceive you. Even if people cannot explain what has changed, they often feel it. Your presence becomes calmer, more grounded, more confident. You no longer carry the restless energy of someone searching for something missing. Instead, you carry the quiet stability of someone who has already found themselves. This shift in presence influences the way people interact with you. Conversations become more natural. Opportunities appear more easily. Relationships begin forming on healthier foundations. You attract people who resonate with your balanced energy. But this change is not limited to new connections. It can also affect existing ones, especially the twin flame connection. When the connection feels different. After inner union begins forming, many people notice that the twin flame connection itself starts feeling different. Earlier in the journey, the connection may have felt chaotic, emotionally intense. unpredictable. Every interaction carried enormous weight. A simple message could create excitement for days. A small misunderstanding could trigger deep emotional reactions. But when inner union stabilizes, the emotional environment around the connection becomes calmer. You no longer interpret every action as a sign of rejection or validation. You no longer feel the need to analyze every detail. Instead, you approach the connection with curiosity rather than urgency. You allow space for the other person to move through their own process. This shift may seem subtle, but energetically it creates a completely different dynamic. Because the connection is no longer fueled by emotional imbalance. It is supported by stability. Unexpected moments of reconnection. One of the most fascinating aspects of this stage is that reconnections often occur when you least expect them. Earlier in the journey, you may have tried to create opportunities for reunion. You might have imagined different scenarios where you could reconnect. But once you stop trying to control the outcome, life sometimes arranges those moments naturally. You might encounter the person unexpectedly. A message may appear after a long period of silence. Circumstances that once kept you apart may begin shifting. For many people, these moments feel almost surreal, because they often happen when the emotional intensity surrounding the connection has already faded. When you are fully focused on your own life. When the need for reunion has disappeared. And this timing is not accidental. It reflects the new energetic environment you have created. Without pressure. Without urgency. Without the emotional turbulence that once made the connection unstable. The role of synchronicity. Another phenomenon that often appears during this stage is an increase in synchronicities. These may include repeating numbers, meaningful coincidences, or symbolic events that remind you of the connection. While synchronicities can appear earlier in the journey as well, their meaning often feels different during the stage of inner union. Earlier, you may have searched for them as signs of reassurance. You wanted confirmation that the connection was real. You wanted proof that union would eventually happen. But now, synchronicities feel less like answers and more like gentle reminders. They appear without being chased. They arrive naturally, often during moments when you are simply living your life. Instead of creating emotional urgency, they inspire quiet reflection. They remind you that life is unfolding in ways that cannot always be explained logically, and that the connection you share exists within a larger spiritual framework. The rebalancing of the dynamic. If the twin flame connection reopens during this stage, many people notice that the dynamic between them has changed. Earlier patterns may no longer dominate the interaction. The runner and chaser roles begin dissolving. Conversations feel more equal. Both individuals appear calmer and more self-aware. The connection may still carry emotional depth, but it no longer feels overwhelming. Instead of triggering unresolved wounds, it begins supporting mutual growth. This shift happens because the energetic foundation of the relationship has transformed. Earlier, the connection may have been driven by unconscious patterns. Fear of abandonment. Fear of intimacy. Need for validation. But once both individuals begin developing inner balance, the relationship can evolve into something healthier. A connection built not on emotional dependency, but on shared awareness and mutual respect. Why external union cannot be forced. Even at this stage, it is important to remember that external union still unfolds according to its own timing. Inner union creates the energetic conditions necessary for harmony, but it does not guarantee that reunion will happen immediately. Each person on the twin flame journey has their own path of healing and awakening. Sometimes one individual reaches inner balance before the other. Sometimes life circumstances require additional growth before the connection can fully stabilize. But the difference now is that you no longer experience this timing as a source of frustration. You trust the process. You understand that the journey has already given you something valuable, your personal transformation. And whether the connection evolves into a physical relationship or remains a spiritual bond, the growth you have experienced cannot be undone. The reflection of wholeness. Ultimately, the outer world can only reflect what already exists within you. When you carried the energy of longing and imbalance, the connection mirrored that turbulence. When you carried the energy of healing and integration, reality began responding differently. The twin flame journey often teaches this lesson in a powerful way. It shows that love is not something you chase. It is something that naturally expands when two individuals become whole within themselves. External union, when it happens, is not the beginning of that process. It is the reflection of something that has already taken place internally. And this realization changes the way you view the entire journey, because you begin to understand that the purpose of the twin flame path was never simply to bring two people together. Its deeper purpose was to guide both individuals toward becoming the most complete version of themselves. And once that inner completeness exists, the universe has a remarkable way of reflecting it back into the world around you. Have you ever noticed a moment when the chaos inside you suddenly becomes quiet? Not because your life has changed, not because all your problems disappeared, but because something inside you finally aligned. This is one of the most misunderstood stages on the twin flame path. Many people believe that the biggest sign of union is when their twin flame returns physically. They wait for a message, a phone call, a confession, a reunion. But the deeper truth is this: union begins long before two people stand in the same room again. It begins in the invisible space within you. And when that inner union starts happening, your energy changes in ways that are unmistakable. Let's explore the subtle but powerful signs that the divine masculine and divine feminine within you are finally coming into harmony. The first sign: a deep, unexplainable peace. For a long time on the twin flame journey, your emotions may have felt like a storm. There were days of longing, days of confusion, moments where you questioned everything. You might have asked yourself over and over again, why did they come into my life if they were only going to leave? But then something shifts. Not dramatically, quietly. One day you wake up and realize something surprising. You're no longer fighting the journey. You're no longer trying to control the outcome. Instead of constantly asking, when will they come back, your mind becomes calm. You start focusing on your own life again. You begin creating, exploring, healing, and growing, not because you're trying to get them back, but because it genuinely feels right. This peace is one of the clearest signs that inner union has begun. The divine feminine within you stops chasing. The divine masculine within you stops resisting. And the result is something rare: stillness. The second sign: you no longer feel incomplete. Earlier in the journey, the connection may have felt like an addiction. You might have believed that your twin flame was the missing piece of your soul. Without them, life felt empty. But as inner union develops, this belief begins to dissolve. You start realizing something profound. You were never incomplete. The twin flame connection was never meant to complete you. It was meant to awaken you. Slowly, you begin to experience a new relationship with yourself. You enjoy your own company. You trust your decisions more. You start feeling whole, even when they are not physically present. This doesn't mean you stop loving them. It simply means your love becomes free instead of dependent. And that shift is powerful, because the moment you stop needing someone to complete you, you become capable of meeting them as an equal. The third sign: your intuition becomes clearer. When inner masculine and feminine energies are in conflict, the mind becomes noisy. You second-guess everything. You overthink every interaction. You replay conversations. You analyze signs. But when inner union begins, something remarkable happens. Your intuition becomes quiet but precise. You start sensing what is true without forcing answers. You stop obsessively looking for signs from the outside. Instead, the knowing comes from within. You might suddenly feel everything is unfolding exactly as it should, even if you don't understand the timeline, even if nothing has visibly changed. This clarity happens because your divine feminine intuition and divine masculine discernment are finally working together. Instead of pulling in opposite directions, they begin supporting each other. And when that happens, your inner compass becomes incredibly strong. The fourth sign: you release the need to chase or run. The runner-chaser dynamic is one of the most painful patterns in twin flame connections. One person pursues, the other withdraws. Then the roles sometimes switch. This cycle can repeat many times. But here's what most people don't realize. This dynamic is not just happening between two people. It is also happening inside you. The chasing energy comes from the wounded feminine within you, the part that fears abandonment. The running energy comes from the wounded masculine within you, the part that fears vulnerability. When inner union begins, both of these wounds start healing. You no longer feel the urge to chase. You no longer feel the urge to run. Instead, you become centered. If they come closer, you remain calm. If they create distance, you remain calm. Your energy becomes steady. And this stability is incredibly magnetic. Because when you stop chasing, you create space for authentic connection instead of emotional reaction. The fifth sign, you start living your purpose. One of the greatest myths about the twin flame journey is that it's primarily about romantic union. In reality, the connection often exists to activate your life purpose. Many people notice that when inner union begins, their focus shifts dramatically. Instead of obsessing about the relationship, they start asking deeper questions. What am I here to create? What gifts am I meant to share with the world? What kind of life truly fulfills my soul? This shift is not accidental. When masculine and feminine energies balance within you, something powerful happens. Your feminine side reconnects you to inspiration, creativity, and intuition. Your masculine side gives you the focus and discipline to bring those visions into reality. Together, they create momentum. You begin building a life that reflects your authentic self. And ironically, this is often when external twin flame union becomes possible. Because the journey was never meant to stop your life. It was meant to ignite it. The sixth sign, you feel grateful for the journey. Perhaps the most surprising sign of inner union is this. You begin feeling grateful for everything that happened. Even the pain, even the separation, even the confusion. You start seeing the connection from a higher perspective. You realize that every challenge pushed you to grow. Every heartbreak forced you to heal. Every moment of uncertainty led you deeper into self-discovery. Without that journey, you might never have confronted your fears. You might never have awakened your spiritual awareness. You might never have discovered the strength within your own soul. So instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you begin asking, "What is this teaching me?" And that question changes everything. Because gratitude transforms suffering into wisdom. A powerful question to reflect on. Let me ask you something important. If your twin flame never returned physically, but the journey led you to become the most authentic, peaceful, and empowered version of yourself, would it still have been worth it? For many people, the honest answer becomes
Yes.
Because the greatest union you will ever experience is not external. It is the moment when your own soul finally feels whole within itself. And here is the paradox. The moment you reach that place of inner wholeness, the moment you stop needing the connection to validate your life, that is often the moment when the external union finally becomes possible. Not because you forced it, not because you chased it, but because your inner world finally reflects harmony. And the universe always mirrors the energy you embody. So, when the masculine and feminine within you unite, reality begins aligning with that frequency. Inner union is not a dramatic event. It is a quiet transformation. It happens slowly, layer by layer, as you heal, grow, and return to your authentic self. And one day, you realize something extraordinary. You are no longer searching for completion, because you already carry it within you. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. Which of these signs have you experienced on your journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is walking the same path. And if you want to explore deeper insights about the twin flame journey, inner union, and spiritual awakening, make sure to subscribe and join this growing community. Because sometimes the answers we are searching for are already awakening within us. At some point on the twin flame journey, a quiet but powerful realization begins to emerge. Union is not something you reach by chasing another person. Union is something that naturally appears when you become aligned within yourself. For so long, the mind may have believed that the final destination of this journey is a relationship, Two people finally coming together after separation, confusion, and emotional turbulence. But what if the real destination was something deeper? What if the true purpose of the twin flame path was always to guide you back to your own wholeness first? Because here is the paradox that many people only understand after years on this journey. Outer union is not the goal. It is the reflection. And reflections only appear when the source changes. The mirror principle of the twin flame connection. The twin flame connection operates like a mirror at the soul level. Everything you experience with your twin often reflects something happening inside you. When there is inner conflict, the relationship often feels chaotic. When there is fear, distance appears. When there is emotional imbalance, the connection becomes unstable. But when inner harmony begins to form, something remarkable happens. The external dynamics start shifting as well. This is not because you forced anything. It is because energy naturally organizes itself around coherence.
Think about it this way.
Imagine two musical instruments playing in the same room. If they are out of tune, the sound becomes uncomfortable. But once both instruments are tuned to the same frequency, the sound becomes harmonious without effort. The twin flame journey works in a similar way. Your internal masculine and feminine energies must first find their own rhythm. Only then can two people truly resonate with each other. Why union cannot happen from need. One of the biggest obstacles to outer union is energetic dependency. When we believe someone is the missing piece of our happiness, we unconsciously place emotional pressure on the connection. We expect them to fulfill needs that were never meant to come from another person. This creates imbalance. The divine feminine energy begins chasing validation. The divine masculine energy begins feeling overwhelmed. And the connection enters the familiar runner-chaser cycle. But when inner union begins, something profound changes. You stop approaching the relationship from lack. You stop asking the connection to fix your loneliness. You stop waiting for someone else to complete your life. Instead, you start living fully, authentically, independently. And paradoxically, this independence creates the safest environment for real union. Because love that comes from wholeness is very different from love that comes from need. Love from need says, I can't live without you. Love from wholeness says, my life is already full, and I choose to share it with you. And that difference changes everything. When the energies finally balance. When inner masculine and feminine energies become balanced, your entire presence begins to shift. You become emotionally grounded. Your intuition becomes clear. Your boundaries become healthy. Your actions become intentional. Instead of reacting to every emotional wave, you begin responding with calm awareness. And people around you can feel this shift, even if they cannot explain it. Your twin flame can feel it too. Remember, twin flames share a deep energetic connection. Even during physical separation, there is often a subtle awareness between the two souls. When your internal energy stabilizes, that change resonates through the connection. It is almost like a signal being sent across an invisible bridge. The message is simple. I am whole now. And when that signal is genuine, the dynamic between both people often begins to evolve. What outer union actually looks like. Many people imagine twin flame union as a dramatic moment. A sudden confession. A passionate reunion. A perfect romantic ending. But real union is often much quieter than that. It doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like peace. When true union happens, the connection becomes grounded rather than intense. There is less emotional turbulence, less drama, less fear. Both people begin meeting each other from a place of emotional maturity instead of wounded patterns. Conversations become honest. Silence becomes comfortable. Space becomes safe. And instead of feeling like two incomplete people trying to fix each other, the connection feels like two whole individuals walking side by side. This is why many people say that real twin flame union feels surprisingly normal. Not overwhelming. Not chaotic. Just deeply aligned. The role of divine timing. Another truth that becomes clearer at this stage is the concept of divine timing. During the earlier phases of the journey, It may feel frustrating. You might have wondered, why did we meet if we weren't ready? Why did the connection appear only to disappear again? But from a higher perspective, every stage had a purpose. Meeting awakened something within you. Separation forced you to confront your wounds. Healing brought you back into alignment. And inner union prepared you for something far greater than the relationship itself. The journey was never random. It was orchestrated to guide both souls through their own evolution. And when both individuals reach the level of awareness needed for union, the connection naturally begins moving toward alignment again. Not through force, but through readiness. The true purpose of twin flame union. Many people think the purpose of twin flame union is personal happiness, but its deeper purpose is often collective impact. When two individuals who have gone through deep healing and self-discovery come together, their combined energy becomes powerful. They inspire others. They create meaningful work. They radiate authenticity. Their relationship becomes a living example of what conscious partnership looks like. Not perfect, but aware. Not dependent, but supportive. Not possessive, but expansive. In this way, the twin flame journey often transforms from a personal love story into something much bigger. It becomes a path of service, a path of awakening, a path of shared purpose. The final realization. After everything, the longing, the healing, the inner transformation, one realization begins to stand above all others. Union was never something you needed to earn. It was something you needed to become ready for. Because the moment you fully embody your authentic self, the moment your inner masculine and feminine stand in harmony, the moment your life becomes aligned with your soul, you stop searching for union. You become it. And when you embody that state internally, the universe has an extraordinary way of reflecting it externally. Sometimes through the return of your twin flame. Sometimes through new forms of love and partnership, but always through experiences that match the energy you have cultivated within yourself. A question for your own journey. So, here is a question worth sitting with. If union with your twin flame is meant to reflect your inner harmony, what would happen if you focused entirely on nurturing that harmony within yourself? What parts of your life would transform? What fears would dissolve? What possibilities would open? Because the truth is this. Your journey is not waiting for someone else to arrive. Your journey is unfolding through every step you take toward your own authenticity. The twin flame path can feel mysterious, confusing, and even painful at times. But at its heart, it carries a profound message. You are not here to chase love. You are here to become love. And when you become that fully balanced, grounded, and aligned, the connections meant for you will naturally find their way into your life, including the one that first awakened your soul. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on where you are in your own journey. Are you beginning to feel that inner balance? Have you noticed signs of your own inner union? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else walking the same path. And if you want more insights about twin flames, spiritual awakening, and inner transformation, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join this growing community. Because sometimes the greatest reunion we will ever experience is the moment we finally come home to ourselves.
Thank you for spending this moment with me. If this message resonated with your soul, remember to subscribe and continue this journey with us here on Twin Flame Journey. And always remember, what is meant for your soul will always find its way back to you.